All right, so we've got John Sanei on the line. Hey, John, how you doing, dude? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yes, how's it? How you doing?
Good. Switch on your video. We want to see you. There you are.
Yes.
Okay.
How you
So,
doing?
first of all, I haven't seen you for the whole of 2020, and you've been writing books and you've been busy, but it's been a hell of a year. How's it been for you?
Well, I was sitting in Amsterdam and I got a string of 3 or 4 emails that canceled my whole life ahead of me. And so I had to move back from Dubai and London and relocate back to South Africa with family. I guess, all our priorities changed. And
Sure.
I've written about this quite a lot. Our Maslow hierarchy of needs got turned upside down.
Sure.
And so prioritizations changed. So yes, everything changed. In fact, all my income left me. I had to write a brand new book. So yeah, everything kind of changed.
So, dude, I mean, I've always liked your take on things because you do a lot of research and you try to compile out of all the different sources and you read a fortune and then you make it easy for us to just get a snapshot of all of that by putting it into your own books or doing a talk. And I've seen you do this before, and it's really, really interesting to see how, I mean, the most useful people in the world, in my opinion, are the people like you who can condense all of the stuff that you know into something that we can quickly get out of you for an hour, or if we read through your book. And I always think that that's really, really helpful.
Thank you.
What have you gathered from 2020? And especially because, again, you're a bit of a sponge. So you would have spent this year paying attention to surveys and statistics and research and interesting new developments. And you will have compiled something that can give us a much quicker route to knowing this information. So 2020, most people are writing off. They're saying it's a disaster. It's just a mess. If you've learned anything this year, then good for you. And there are things to be gained, like time spent with family and learning to appreciate your surroundings a bit more, and not always being in a hurry and not having to deal with traffic and all of that stuff. So there are positives that are fairly obvious, and we've discussed some of them on the show. But what are your top line lessons from 2020?
Well, I think we must really understand that if you're in a privileged position of having income, a roof over your head, and some cash flow to see you going through, this has been a gift wrapped in sandpaper. If you haven't, it's just been sandpaper. So yes, there's very different sort of experiences of what's going on. So let's just make sure. I don't want to give anybody that's had a really tough time any discredit. For me,
you don't want to sound like one of those people who's like, oh, it's been a great year for me.
Exactly.
When someone else hasn't got a job anymore,
Exactly. And I think it's unfair to do that. But the truth is that 2 things have happened. One, we have lost every inclination of any sort of certainty in our future. Our addiction to predictability and certainty is totally gone out the window. And organizations and people that are addicted to the certainty are going to be taking a lot of strain. And so we have to realize that even in our neuroplasticity, our brains are always looking for something called DPO, which is duration, path, and outcome. And right now, we don't know how long this is going to last, what's going to happen on the path, and what the outcome looks like. So there's this level of fatigue and panic and emotional stress that's going on. So we all need to be aware of that. The second thing is that we're moving from a complicated world to a complex one. And this is a fundamentally different way to show up as an individual or as a business. A complicated world is a world of linear innovation with patterns that repeat themselves. So you can utilize automation, mathematics, accounting, and Excel spreadsheets to work yourself out of a problem because these patterns are expected and repeat themselves. In a complex world, we're living in a world where there are patterns that don't repeat themselves. And this becomes the real tough thing for people to want to swallow, is that the difference between these 2 things is that when you go to the airport and you put your suitcase on a conveyor belt, the baggage, your luggage, gets to you in the most complicated, efficient way so that you can get your luggage on the plane. But the minute you get onto the plane, now you're living in a complex world. In other words, you have 4 engines when only 1 is enough. You have 3 pilots when only 1 is enough. You have 8 operating systems when only 1 is enough. Why? Because up in the sky, you have no idea what's coming. So you prepare for complexity, not complications. And so here we are in a world today where people are trying to go back to some level of normality, which I think is the worst thing for us to do, because normality is just familiar. It wasn't good. It was just something we were used to.
Well,
and so
there's so many things that we were doing that were actually quite stupid. And if we go back to that just because we consider that to have been what we did before and it was normal, we're actually going backwards, literally and figuratively, and we're not helping ourselves. If you come out of a situation like this year and you haven't learned anything, and you don't do some things better, then really it's been a complete waste of time, and you may as well just be, drowning in misery on Friday the 13th of 2020.
Yeah. Well, Gareth, let's just remember something, that this virus has mutated from a medical issue to a socio-economic issue, a political issue, a cultural issue.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, we are only at the beginning of it. We've still got another couple of years to go until things settle down, until we have the domino effects of all the bankruptcies and all the new habits and rituals that have been created through this lockdown. So we're nowhere near the end. So it's not about this year. It's about using this next chapter, this next sort of 18 months to 24 months, to really take the time to rethink what success looks like and what your impact in the world's going to look like post-COVID-19. And that's a big question, and that's stressing a lot of people out.
You used to travel a lot, and you just mentioned how you had to change your plans for 2020 and come back home. I mean, Chris says, I have to leave Dubai and come back to South Africa and give up 100,000 Rand monthly salary because my passport's going to expire. It'll take a year to renew it in Dubai. So we're also seeing massive disruption in people's lives. There's obviously stuff that you can do something about, and then there's stuff that you can do nothing about. What have you gleaned from people who've really taken the bull by the horns and made the best of it?
Look, I think what happens is, I call it the survivor consciousness trigger points. What has happened is that we've all been triggered very personally, either into a drama triangle or into a creator triangle. And some people have taken this on as an unbelievable opportunity to rethink things. And other people have
sounds like an attack now, John.
An attack? Why? No. Why? Okay. Maybe are you in the drama triangle? Sorry.
Sometimes we do need to flare up. Okay. We deal with it like that.
And look, I write about this extensively, is that even myself, I was triggered into a drama triangle. And the drama triangle has got three characteristics. I feel sorry for myself, I feel sympathetic towards the world, or I feel angry with the world. All three for you, Sia? Yeah. That's cool.
And the creative triangle?
And the creative triangle has got, instead of seeing this as a problem to me, I see it as an opportunity to bring something new to the world. Instead of being sympathetic, I can be empathetic. In other words, I can coach people around me. And from anger, I can become a challenger. And so it really has become a very personal situation where I've seen some of my friends crumble and I've seen some of my friends come alive. And so we must realize that this is only the beginning of these disruptions. This is going to be continuously becoming our reality moving forward. We have no idea what's coming next. And because of the socio-economic domino effects and business domino effects that we're having around us, we must be ready for many, many more disruptions that are coming. So here's the whole point of the book and the research, is that you can't predict the future anymore. The only thing you can manage is your behavior. And the point is how do you make your behavior more optimistic?
I'm going to repeat that because you broke up a little bit and it's the internet's fault. You said the point is that you can't predict the future anymore. Yes. And then we lost you. Say that again.
You can't predict the future anymore. The only thing you can manage is your behavior.
Okay.
And so your behavior becomes the key in becoming adaptable, flexible, letting go of lost successes or past successes to rethink what we can do in the future. Now, remember, many of the narratives in our society were just the way it is when we had slavery, apartheid, women not voting, children in labor camps. And so we have to ask ourselves as conscious, smart human beings, what stories and narratives are we living right now that are just rubbish? And which ones do we need to let go of in order to be able to build a new one? So for me, it's this very personal story, but also a massively societal story that we need to open a conversation about and just discuss new ways and new possibilities to reimagine a new world.
Do you think that people have an ability to rise above and to do things about their behavior? Because not all of us do, and we've got to be realistic about this too. Some people are using coronavirus and the lockdowns as an excuse for everything, right? And it was bound to happen as well. We've got people who are hypochondriacs. We've got people who are looking for someone to blame for all the stupid things that are happening in their lives. And obviously, there's a certain amount of agency that you have to take onto yourself. There's a certain amount of decision-making power that you have to be accountable for. And for some people, that's really hard, John. I don't want to make excuses for them a second time when they're trying to make excuses for themselves the first time. But in all seriousness, this is probably the most challenging thing, certainly that our generation's been through.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And don't forget that these people are blaming everything right now. We're blaming other things before this. This is just a much deeper thing and a much broader thing you can blame. But it all comes down to your self-awareness, Gareth. I mean, if you are sitting in a stew of feeling sorry for yourself or angry for the world, you'll just continuously find different things to blame. It's because you're black, it's because you're white, it's because you're tall, it's because you're fat, it's because you're short. There's just a million things you can go down this route in. So this is actually a challenge to us to become responsible for our perspectives, to heal our pasts, and to create and reimagine a future. So yes, people can sit and stew. And unfortunately, what starts to happen is birds of a feather stick together, right? So what happens is the braai you have next week is also full of people that are feeling sorry for themselves and shaming and blaming and being angry with the world. And the only thing that changes when you finish a bitching session like that is your blood sugar levels and your heart rate. And that's all that happens. And so really what we have to do is come together and try and fix these things.
Yeah, I know I've been a little bit guilty of that sometimes. I'm mostly an optimistic and very positive person, but sometimes if you're around certain people, you tend to get a little bit negative. It happens to all of us. And I've caught myself being the person who's being negative sometimes. And it's really unnecessary. It's up to you at every step of the way to decide whether or not you're going to be one of those people who pulls everything down. And I know I've been guilty of that. Or when you're one of those people who pulls things up.
Look, I think it's impossible for us all to be Gandhi, or Mother Teresa. So let's not try and be that. What I often do is I give myself some time to sulk. Just give yourself some time to sulk, time to go through the drama triangle, but then become aware that you're in it so that you don't continue wheel spinning in it, because that's what happens. You just continuously wheel spin in that scenario.
What do you do? This is really important. What do you do to break out of that?
So two things. One, I call it mourning your future memories. So let's remember that your memories don't have time attached to them. They're from your past and from your future. They're timeless. So the best way to describe this is that if you've ever gone through a breakup, the thing that you mourn are the future plans you had with each other. The house you were going to build with each other, the holiday we were going to go on with each other. Those are future memories that you've had to let go of. They're not just from your past. So as a society, and even in our individual capacities, our futures became postponed, indefinitely, canceled, moved aside. And no matter what they were, they've just been taken away from us. And so it's really important for us to understand the 5 steps of mourning, denial, anger, bargaining, grief, and acceptance, and just figure out where you are in this process. I just, for the last few weeks, I went through a massive level of grief. And I was actually explaining to my friends, this is part of the process of me letting go of my future, because I went through anger and I went through bargaining and I went through denial. And then for the last 2 weeks, I was just very sad. And that was also okay. So the first thing is mourn your future memories, look at what 5 stages you're in, become okay with those 5 stages, but ultimately get yourself to a place of acceptance. Because once you get yourself to a place of acceptance, you catalyze yourself to think about something new and think about a new way to bring impact to the world. The second thing is what I've already spoken about is, Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted you. The second thing is?
No, it's the drama triangle and the creator triangle. When I was writing the book, I realized that I was in a deep drama triangle. And Gareth, I think you'll relate to this. We're both in the public eye, and you're obviously a lot more famous than I am. But I was in a deep, secret drama triangle when I used to see Simon Sinek get 25 million views on a video and John Sanei would get 3,500. I would sit there feeling angry with the world, feeling sorry for myself. But this was just a very secretive story that I was playing inside my head. And so I started to realize that I had drama in certain aspects of my life and creator in certain others. And so when I became aware of it, I could adjust it. And to be honest with you, when I became aware of it and I adjusted it, the very next week, I got invited to speak with Yuval Harari on stage to 40,000 people coming through Russia.
What was that like, dude?
Look, unbelievable. I mean, to be involved, look, that's another gift of COVID, right? We've become borderless. And so just 2 days ago, I was on stage with Simon Sinek in India, with Yuval Harari 4 weeks ago in Russia. And so, yes, these things have opened up for us in massive, massive ways. So look, coming back to future memories and drama triangle, these become 2 very, very key skill sets and tool sets that we need to become aware of and practice, because otherwise we're just going to be miffed and upset all the time.
What did you glean from Sinek and Yuval Noah Harari? Because, I mean, these are 2 people who've been, best-selling authors. They do talks all over the world, and you're on the same slate as them. That's got to count for something. But at the same time, you're also there listening. And many people pay, thousands of dollars to be in the audience for these kinds of things, even virtually. What did you get from him? I mean, Yuval Noah Harari is amazing because he just seems to be able to take the big picture and something very complex and make it understandable.
So firstly, they get about $100,000 to $150,000 to be exact. So it's quite a lucrative process. Look, the thing that amazes me about Yuval Harari is that he does 60 days of silent meditation a year. He does Vipassana, 30 days at a time. And that access to his genius is obvious why it's happened, because he's almost like this channel for this incredible level of depth of knowledge. And so what fascinates me about these people that I share stages with is obviously I've been exposed to all their work and I love it. And maybe even to a certain extent, they're overexposed because they don't have that much of a breadth of things to say. So if you've watched 3 interviews with Yuval Harari, you understand what he has to say, and Simon Sinek the same. What for me fascinates me is their process. You know, I like to understand what has gotten them to that way of thinking and that way of dissecting the world. And Yuval Harari, I'm a fan of his veganism, his gayness, his Israeliness, his meditationness, all of these things that are just make him such a fascinating and conscious human being, you know? So yeah, it's been fascinating being with them. And obviously because of COVID, it's opened up many doors, you know, so I'm very happy. I see, is this George from Auto Trader?
It is. George.
Hey, George, what's up, dude?
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Last time I saw John was actually when he spoke at your Auto Trader event. I think it was last year.
Ah, yes. Long time. It feels like 250 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very true. You were saying the brain knows no time.
Well,
Exactly.
Listen, John, good luck with the book.
Thank you.
FutureNEXT. John Sanei, and you can find out more by reading his book, obviously. And you're obviously back on the speaking circuit, even though it's virtually, right?
Yeah, busier than ever. And I think more people needing some sort of direction more than ever. So yes, very busy and enjoying the process, you know. So just quickly, 19th of November is our book launch. So if you want to register, please reach out to me on social media. We're having a hybrid launch with a massive LED screen with lots of people on Zoom on it and also a small live audience. So yeah, please join up. And thanks very much for having me, guys.
That's amazing, dude. Thanks so much for
Thank you.
sharing thoughts of this. It's always good to see you. There's John.
Thank you.